Share. Check. Alright, let's see. YouTube, welcome back to another episode of The Tasteless Chef. I would love to bring back basics. In today's episode, we are going to cover emulsifications. There's two in particular that I think are the perfect way to introduce yourself into the technique. Today's technique doesn't involve a lot of skill, it just more so involves patience and vigilance. Two techniques. We're going to talk about two techniques that Alright, let's let that little donut remember how to speak English. In the meantime, I just wanted to take a second to say thank you, whether it's welcome to or welcome back. Thanks for stopping by the channel. The amount of support I've been getting lately has been literally insane. So thank you. We're about to get into another episode of Basics. This is a format that we've done once before in episode 4, and it's something that I love. If you do too, like the video, but also let me know what you'd like to see more of in the comments. Let's get into episode 6. This is kind of a bowl-heavy conversation. We got to start off with just how to secure it in general. So, some bowls come with this whole rubberized bottom situation. It's super handy, make sure that it, obviously doesn't go anywhere. And then some do not. For those that don't, super easy to handle. Whether it's a kitchen towel or a paper towel, just get it damp enough to the point. Just get it wet, right? Then rig it out. Give it a little twisty twist, and then basically we just want to shape the outline of the bottom contact points of our bowl. So get your little twisted joint, get the bowl, lift it up on one side, and then just pull it across. Once you have that, you can just apply some pressure, and then you are good to go. I would recommend a flat bowl if you are learning, especially because we're trying to monitor the progress of two liquids as they come together, and because it can split so easily. That flat profile and less curvature is just going to mean that you don't have to react as fast. Way easier. In terms of the types of emulsion that we want to talk about today, egg versus mustard. A mustard-based emulsification that thickens, and then an egg yolk emulsion that actually does some bonding. Starting off with mustard, although mustard seeds has a couple of things in it, like mucilage and pectin and blah, we want to focus on lecithin. What lecithin is gonna allow us to do is to basically encourage the oil and vinegar to want to hang out with each other. Because they don't necessarily get along, but one way we can trick them to do so is starting to add things in a very, very small amount and spread them out and start to basically break down the molecules into the smallest size that we can. What this will do is it'll basically trick them into being close to each other. Then when we go into repeating these processes and adding more oil, you'll see that it starts to take to the mixture immediately. And then from there, it's just tinkering with the design of flavor and consistency. If it's too thick, add more liquid, add vinegar or even water if it's already there flavor-wise. If it's not thick enough, continue to add oil. And then afterwards, check it for seasoning and add anything you want, but we just made a mustard emulsification. Now, the difference between this and our next topic is that this eventually will separate. Whereas an egg yolk based dressing has a less likelihood for doing so because it has lecithin in it, but it also has protein in a couple different types, some of which get along with oil and some of which get along with water. And so similar to our last emulsification, and break down the egg yolks until air bubbles start to form, and then dilute with a small amount of vinegar, and then start to beat in your fat. In this case, we're using vegetable oil, and you'll see that oil intake is almost immediate because of that extra help from the protein. Both the fat and the liquid at all times have somewhere that they have, basically little buddies to join to. This basically separating a mayonnaise from a traditional vinaigrette. What largely separates them both is their ability to take in fats and then hold them. As you can see with the mayonnaise base that we just created, it's not see-through by any means, and it's one complete velvety texture. Those combinations of proteins and how we approached it basically makes this a bonded emulsion, meaning that this will go bad ever before it separates. Now, in terms of applying these to greens, going from super sturdy to definitely not, like the more sturdy winter greens like the spinach that I have here. Similar to like a kale, these just stand up to our egg yolk based dressings so much more because they have a bit more of a bite to them. Whereas their lighter counterparts, like say this arugula or other light greens, these could just be a simple lemon and olive oil, or at best a vinaigrette like we made, but would not stand up to an egg yolk based. But back to that, adding in some herbs, shallot, and seasonings, some roasted cabbage and mushrooms. I just wanted to give an example of how this kind of a dressing, we can call it, lends itself to these more robust winter kind of greens. And you'll start to notice as we plate these up, there's like a structural component to the dressing that really just doesn't move. The egg yolk emulsion is sturdy to the point where you see it just sticking in those little pockets of these greens. Super good technique that's great to apply to any sort of like really dense winter-esque kind of a green. Now, on the other side, on the lighter green scale, I used arugula as an example, but any lighter green will fit this scale for the most part. And generally speaking, just lemon and olive oil works. If you're going to use a vinaigrette, lighten it to the point where you just have that light gloss to it. Now, the cool thing about noticing emulsification and starting to like have this in your database is that when you're starting to learn new culinary techniques or even practicing old ones, you'll start to notice certain functionalities of how things come together. But regardless, whether it is welcome to or welcome back, thanks for stopping by Created by Cody. We just did another episode of Basics. Still one of my favorite formats, so if you like this format, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future, and if you like this video, like the fucking video. Thanks for stopping by. This was episode 6 of the Tasteless Chef. We just did an episode on basics. We talked about emulsification, and I'm sure down the line we'll do a deep dive on these, but this is my intro, my 2 techniques into understanding just what they are and how they work. Until next week, this is your captain signing off, and like always, go be great.